Hi, this is Nathan Brown for the Rialto Center for the Arts at Georgia State University, and this is our weekly Homegrown Artist Series where we highlight Atlanta artists. Today we have storyteller Benjamin Carr. Growing up in the South with cerebral palsy, Benjamin developed an eye for the bizarre and quirky, which provided all of the stories he told his friends and family with a bit of flavor. Working as a journalist, storyteller, and playwright, his work, whether the stories be personal tales of struggle and survival, or fiction about cannibal lunch ladies or killer circus clowns, has been featured in The Guardian, Arts ATL, and Pembroke Magazine. On stage, his pieces have been presented at the Center for Puppetry Arts, the Alliance Theater, and as part of the Samuel French Off-Broadway Short Play Festival in Manhattan. He helps to run the online literary magazine, Gutwrench Journal, and has just completed work on his very first novel entitled Impacted, which is slated for release mid-next year. Please follow the links at the end to hear more of Benjamin's work and to support him there.
Back before the end of the world, when summers were normal, my family in Ohio and I, and all of the other Georgia relatives, would meet somewhere closer to the Mason-Dixon line and go collectively on vacation together. Usually the spots were some sort of cave or water park, because the majority of the time we were invested in entertaining all of the 40,000 children and little cousins that all of my cousins have begat, and I don't have any children myself because I'm that cousin. Anyway, one year, about 5 years ago, which now feels like a million years ago, we went to West Virginia, and in addition to the pizza parties and the water parks and all of that, they actually planned an event for the adults to do, which was, besides go to a bar. My aunt and my uncle and my cousin Holly asked if I wanted to join them going ziplining through a gorge with my brother, Danny. And so we did go ziplining through a gorge. The reason that they asked me and didn't think that I would really want to do it is because I am disabled and generally not much of a risk taker. I was always a fraidy cat child who wouldn't get on roller coasters. I still don't get on roller coasters because it looks like I'm about to pee and cry at the same time. Generally, if any amount of stress or strain is set to take place. However, as I've gotten older and spent more time in hospitals dealing with hip replacements or blood clots in my legs, things like that, I realized that ziplining through a gorge is something that you may as well do while you can, because as we know nowadays, you can die just from walking around. So I walked with my aunt, my uncle, my brother, and my cousin up to the side of a canyon where we went on a ziplining trail which involved 8 different zips just through the air, over trees and open nothingness. I am a fraidy cat. I am a fraidy cat. This is not the best idea. we had a guide. It was this big bear of a man, red hair, just muscles. His name was Brent. He was lovely. He helped me put my harness on. And anyway, so once I have the harness on, you hook yourself up to a wire, just hanging out over endless nothing. If it's incorrectly attached, you will die. Painfully die. Just die. But I was with my brother, so I figure if he can do it, then I'm going to, because we still have that rivalry thing going on. So my brother and I are both hooked up, and we decide to just let ourselves go. And he is a strong, athletic, normal person. So he was perfectly all right, just taking in the thrill of it. I used words that I can't really say on this video. I used words that my aunt was shocked by. But because I was zooming away from her, it basically just sounded like, and then it was fine. Until you had to later climb a rope bridge, barely hanging over a canyon, to get to the next stop. You zoom out over the canyon, you're trying to get used to it. You never get used to the fear and the thrill and the sheer audacity of stepping out into a void, hoping that you're okay. But really, if something bad is going to happen, you are at the mercy of it. You just have to let things go. There were other people in the tour group with us. There's this couple who, like a boyfriend and girlfriend, who, I gotta tell you, they probably did not last past this trip. She was high maintenance. I don't really remember her name, so I'm just gonna call her Karen. Seems fitting. And her boyfriend was just a jerk. Every time she felt the least bit nervous or the least bit scared, which got even worse as the zips became more and more treacherous, as the climbs became higher and higher. And I just started to develop this audacity because I was a week out of the hospital from a blood clot when I decided to just risk my life flying out over everyone and trees and whatnot. We get to the last drop, which was literally called the drop because it dropped you like 40 feet directly down. Someone might need to check my math, but it felt like 40 feet directly down. Then it had a dip in it, and it would then throw you momentarily into the air. And Brent, the tour guide, told me, some people, they like to do a flip once all this is over. And I'm like, I ain't doing no damn flip. But Karen did not want to do this at all. And her boyfriend was berating her. He called her chicken, which is not the way, even though I'm gay, not the way to get a woman to do something, I believe. So right before I was about to let go, as my wire is dangling over the drop, right before I decided whether or not I was going to do a flip, I asked Karen to come over to the ledge where I was sitting, and I said to her, "You're going to want to do things like this. You're going to want to have adventures. You're going to want to take risks. And the reason is because every single one of these events gives you a story to tell. You're going to want to tell your grandchildren this. Not with that guy, but you're going to want to tell your grandchildren when you have them this. And you're going to want to be the hero of your own story. You're going to want to be daring." I said, "Karen, a week ago I was in a hospital. A week ago I didn't know that I was going to be walking around or able to do any of this at all. I was scared. But now I'm with my family. And now I'm jumping around from mountain to mountain. I get to be the hero. I get to tell the story. You're going to want to do things like this," I said right before I let go. I said, "This is living." And then I did a flip. My next story begins with someone else's ending, someone that I did not know. A helicopter crashed into Lake Lanier, killing the pilot when I was in the 8th grade. And this story would not affect me at all. It would not matter to me at all, except for the fact that my parents, my mother and my stepfather, went sunbathing at the lake every single day of that year. Like, to the point where they look like well-worn, well-polished leather bags. They witnessed this helicopter crash. They were one of the only witnesses of this helicopter crash. And as a result of that, my parents were on the news, interviewed for it. And I'm fairly certain that I became a journalist because of this, because I realized that it was possible for two people to look at the exact same event and come up with wildly different perspectives on it. You know, you're in the 8th grade and you're shocked for a second, like, oh no, someone has died. This is horrible. And then you're overcome more so with like, oh my God, my parents are going to be on the news. They interviewed my mother first. She was on one channel. She is, to give you a bit of background, she is from Ohio, an education major from Bowling Green State University. Very prim, very proper, trained in performance. Her interview went something like this. It was so awful. We were just sitting there, and then all of a sudden, it just came down in front of us. My God. Now, my stepfather was different. He was on 3 channels. He was from Buford, Georgia, made it all the way through the 8th grade before he got kicked out of school for being ornery. He had a different take on it. This, to the best of my ability, was my stepfather on the news.
Now, it just sort of started, it's flying kind of low, and I looked over and I was like, and that thing's flying kind of low, isn't it? Then it just starts to like turn right over us, and I looked over and I was like, and I think that thing's going out over the water. Then, all of a sudden, I noticed it. I looked over, and there was like turning. It was making a noise. You just heard this grinding. And I looked over. I said, "And is smoke coming from out of that thing?" Then the smoke just sort of like just billowed out. And then all of a sudden, you just heard this noise like this, like. Then you just heard the grinding, and the motor is like turned like it was like about to flip over. And then it just starts to like grind like rare. Then it just hover out over the water, and I'm like, and I think that thing's gonna crash. Then it just goes out there over the water, and it just crash in the water. Then all of a sudden the water was just calm, and there wasn't nothing. Thank you.